Most of the advice that I hear about exposing in log at clubs and festivals sucks. So I'm going to give you my 2 cents as someone that spent the last 9 years shooting everything from dark sweaty warehouse parties through to Tomorrowland main stages. The first thing, do not trust your camera meter and base your exposure off that. In nightlife, you've got strobes, you've got moving heads, you've got blinders coming on and off, you've got CO2 cannons that light up and make everything brighter for a split second. The light levels are chaotic and the camera can't keep up. It reacts to everything a little bit too slow and it fluctuates way too much for you to use that as a consistent baseline for your exposure. The most practical replacement, especially in a fast-moving environment, is a monitoring LUT. A monitoring LUT applies a real-time log conversion to Rec 709 so that you can see how the image will look in post. Instead of looking at a flat grey image that's impossible to gauge, you're seeing something that's much closer to what your image will actually look like when you sit down to grade it. It's not a permanent grade. It doesn't bake the LUT into the footage. It captures in log in the background, but it shows you the converted image. Ideally, you would use the same conversion LUT that you're planning on using in the edit. In other words, what you see on the monitor is exactly what you're going to be working with. If you have a camera that doesn't support a proper conversion LUT, you can still use Gamma Display Assist, which pretty much all cameras will have. At this point, it's not a one-to-one reference for how you're going to grade it yourself, but it's much closer than trying to expose based off a log image. On top of using a conversion LUT, I highly recommend you enable zebras. Zebras are those stripy patches on the screen that show you specific ranges of exposure. Typically, most people set them to the upper range so that they can see when the highlights have clipped to white. That is what I would recommend. If you see those zebras on something that you care about, you need to pull the exposure down. Don't worry if you've got little hotspots on things like the lighting fixtures or the sun. That is normal. You're never going to expose for them without underexposing the rest of your image. And that's basically it. That's how I've exposed every single shot that I've captured in a nightlife setting for the last 6+ years. Before then, I don't know what I was doing, just making shit up as I went along. Conversion LUT, get used to how things should look on the back of your camera. If you notice that in the grade you're constantly pulling your exposure down by one stop, factor that in the next time you shoot.